Now hit it!
Now, of course, there were some bad episodes in Season 2 of He-Man, as there was with Season 1. However, with the generally improved animation quality, there weren't perhaps as many flat-out horrible episodes. There of course were the typical sloppy writing and such, but really, many of the episodes in Season 2 were just mediocre rather than unbearably bad. But there were some genuine stinkers, and I'll be taking a look at them in 2 parts in the Season 2 reviews. Now don't take this as an indication of the overall qualities of episodes in Season 2. I simply wanted to devote 2 videos to talking about particularly bad episodes, since this year I didn't make a bottom 10 like last year. So let's now take a look at 4 bad episodes from He-Man's second season. The Ancient Mirror of Avatar from the end of Season 2 illustrates perhaps one of the biggest complaints I had with many Season 2 episodes, the sheer amount of wasted potential. Firstly, this is Mossman's second episode appearance, and in all honesty, the better of the 2. He actually gets to show off his powers and abilities, but he really doesn't play a massively important part of the story. So, what's the story anyway? Well, He-Man and Malakta are out to discover the remnants of the lost empire of Avatar. They head off to a distant island believed to contain ruins of the civilization, but they manage to find a hidden treasure trove and the ancient mirror of Avatar, which contains all the wisdom of the Avatar Empire. Now, the mirror itself is really cool, and I honestly believed it was going to play an important part in the story, but really, this episode should have been called He-Man Teaches Responsibility to Stupid Brats. Yes, it's another episode where one of the key factors to its ruin is an SCC, a stupid child character. This time the SCC is Opie, an apprentice lighthouse watchman who hates his job and is left to watch out for the regular lighthouse watchman, his father, when he goes out. But of course he gets bored, lets water ruin the equipment, causes the hero's ship to run aground, and forces He-Man to save the ship. Opie and his father manage to shine a light from the lighthouse with a mirror, saving the day. Yes, the whole plot of the episode is heroes go to the island, heroes find mirror, heroes run aground, heroes make it to shore, the end. The mirror is just a MacGuffin, and nothing in the episode really has much of anything to do with it. Trapjaw is actually stowing away on the ship, hoping to steal the mirror with Too Bad and Evil Lyn watching over, but honestly, he does nothing. And of course his disguise is entirely unconvincing, yet the heroes don't notice until they overhear Trapjaw talking over the communicator. I also didn't really care for Malakta's appearance in this episode. Occasionally, Malakta could act like a real asshole, and this episode is no exception when Malakta is rude to Mossman for leaving some gunk on his hands when they first meet. However, he eventually comes around when Mossman and him fall down a hole and he lands on him. This scene also features one of the most hilarious transformation bits, where Adam becomes He-Man just to remove the lid on the trap door, then immediately turns back to normal so as to not arouse suspicion. The episode does, however, have some logical fallacies. I mean, look at the rickety-ass boat He-Man and company sail on. What the hell happened to the fancy-schmancy cruise liner from the Search for the VHO episode? Did they honestly downgrade the seafaring technology just so they could have that bit about the lighthouse and the ship running aground? And why did they take a ship to begin with? Wouldn't have they made it faster with a Wind Raider? In the Search for the VHO episode, there was a reason they couldn't fly to the island. This scenario is entirely different. I also noticed Adam transforms into He-Man in the hold after the ship runs aground, yet not 2 seconds before, we were shown that Trapjaw was holed up in there with him. Did his cage just dissolve? The Lost Mirror of Avatar is just a disappointing episode. It does have a cool plot device, the mirror, which sadly isn't used at all, and just a rather innate morality tale plot, which isn't even one of the better ones from the show. This one just doesn't warrant watching. Speaking of lost potential, let's look at the Great Books of Mystery from the start of the season. The plot of the episode has to do with books disappearing from Eternia. Orko is particularly distraught for losing a book about unicorns he was going to give to Adam as a birthday present. Before I say anything about the premise of the episode, let me introduce the villain of this episode, Batros. Batros apparently wants to rule Eternia, and stealing all the books and effectively all the knowledge from the kingdom will help him achieve that. Skeletor sees what Batros is doing and decides to allow him to join, seeing him as more of an intellectual equal than his henchman. Tila and Orko actually managed to follow Batros. How? Tila found a book by the side of the road, that's how.
I found this book next to the road this morning.
What are we waiting for?
Tila and Orko are surprised by Batros, who in turn is surprised by Trapjaw, who in turn gets captured by Batros, who then follows Beastman to Snake Mountain. Here, Skeletor and Batros strike a deal and attack Grayskull. But of course, He-Man shows up to stop the villains. I think this is uncharacteristically sloppy of Skeletor to assume that He-Man's just not going to show up. So He-Man subdues the villains, but when the heroes return to Batros's hideout to collect the books, they realize they're gone. He-Man deduces Skeletor took them, goes to Snake Mountain and is trapped by a net and a trapdoor. However, Skeletor confidently admits the books are right below him, He-Man breaks free, and returns the books just in time to celebrate his birthday. Here is an episode that just clearly tried to hammer a point home unnecessarily. This is a reading is good episode. Sometimes it was nice how He-Man could tie in important lessons for the kiddies to learn into their action storyline, but the Great Book's mystery is so overstated in this regard, it isn't even funny. In fact, I think you'll laugh out loud just seeing how overdramatic the title card music is on this one. Plus, I can't get over the fact that Orko is getting a unicorn book to Adam as a present, and that he's constantly obsessing over it. Where it really crosses the line for me is when Teela and Orko manage to escape Trapjaw and leave Batros's hideout, and Teela actually lets Orko go back in to look for his stupid unicorn book. Okay, I get it. Books are important. Reading is important. Learning is important. Knowing is half the fight. Does the whole episode have to come off like a propaganda film? I know what you're getting at, but it's frickin' books. You just can't expect that to hold an entire episode together.
We must find those books.
By the power of Grayskull!
I'm not gonna even mention how Batros is clearly supposed to be an evil Horde character, as evidenced by the Horde logo on his chest. This is just a dumb episode, and I felt compelled to talk about it. Now, sometimes you could get sort of underwhelming storylines in He-Man, like the aforementioned Great Book's mystery, but occasionally you would get episodes like Attack from Below, which deals with a theme that I think is just too serious and dark for a children's cartoon to handle. Now, I've laid off this subject in my prior He-Man episode reviews because I felt it inappropriate to even talk about it, but here it is. One of He-Man's awkward recurring themes, slavery. The episode itself has to do with the cornfields suddenly disappearing when the animator decided to pull down on the layer sheet while the camera was rolling. Turns out a race of red-eyed subterranean hillbillies called the Bellards are stealing Eternia's crops. While the attack happens, Teela gets pulled down and lets out the loudest scream in cartoon history. We're shown that the Bellards are distrustful of surface dwellers since long ago they were enslaved by Skeletor but revolted and hid underground. However, the Bellards are running out of food, and because of their bad encounter with Skeletor, assume that all surface dwellers are alike. Yes, they were able to fill in a racism allegory in there as well. Now, Teela actually decides to remain as a hostage to try to convince the Bellards that not all surface dwellers are evil, but the Bellard leader starts the assault regardless, and He-Man stops it. Finally, He-Man confronts the Bellard leader and destroys the generator of the Bellard's war machines. A random farmer boy, who we were introduced to early in the episode, manages to finally convince the Bellard leader that the farmers work of their own free will, but not before the Bellard leader has caused a massive flood. But He-Man just redirects the water and saves the field. After which, the Bellards ironically decide to work for free to pay for the damage they caused to the fields. Now, I do think it's interesting that a show like He-Man would try to tackle a serious topic like slavery, but I honestly feel it's just the wrong kind of format. A silly action show commenting on the greatest crime against humanity. Especially with the episode featuring one of the worst He-Man vehicles of all time, the Dragon Walker. For God's sake, that doesn't even look like a viable form of transportation. And I'm not saying He-Man's other vehicles don't look like toys, but just look at this hot mess. In all, this episode is just unsatisfactory in trying to do such a serious story with such goofy elements holding it down. Well, to close off the first half of the bad episode reviews, let's turn our attention to the return episode of Kothos the Magician. Revenge is never sweet. As you will remember, Kothos was turned into a sandslug at the end of the episode The Witch and the Warrior, and he's turned back again by a helpful Orko. Just like that. Man, magic is easy. So Kothos immediately takes everyone hostage, stuns them, and sends them off on a raft while he waits for He-Man. Adam bravely volunteers to go look for help, becomes He-Man, and serves everyone to safety. However, Kothos puts a weakening helmet on He-Man and plans to trade him with Skeletor for Evil-Lyn. Somehow Skeletor seems to convince her that he's only playing along to Kothos, but eventually it turns out he's double-crossing her. Evelyn frees He-Man with her magic, and He-Man then goes after Kothos in order to save Evelyn, along with Orko and Teela. He-Man gets distracted, so Teela and Orko save Evelyn. Rather than leave, she decides to take out her anger on Kothos by first throwing plates at him, but then she throws his entire floating palace out of whack. He-Man, however, catches the palace, though only after Kothos promises to give up evil, which he does. What an anticlimactic finale. Now, Kothos wasn't exactly the most interesting villain to begin with, but the fact that they made him a good guy at the end makes him seem even less imposing. He does have a lot of magic spells at his disposal, but he's not the best or the most memorable character. In fact, the Filmation writers even forgot his name and started calling him Kothos for this episode.
Look, isn't that the evil wizard Kothos with Orko?
This is Kothos.
Kothos? I thought I turned him into a sand slug.
It's a shame that Kothos' return episode is such a letdown, because it has some fun moments with Orko and some pretty good animation quality. It does have stupid stuff in it as well, like another toy-like vehicle called the Roton. Really, if you're not gonna take a character's comeback episode seriously, you better not do it at all. Well, that's enough bad episodes for now. Next time, we'll get our second helping. Until then, I have the power, so can you. Hey, wanna help me decide what to do for the final video of the He-Man Season 2 reviews? Why not join the forums at itstelltime.net. You can also discuss movies, TV, anime, video games, and much more. See you all on the next one.